at the moment, Micheil.
That's fine.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
Good
perfect.
morning. Good morning from my pink kitchen.
Oh yeah, it's pink allegedly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen to me. Just to do a short intro of who you are and what you are, I'll give a little bit of an overview. First of all, you're married to a stunning Irish woman.
Yes.
You're Dutch, yeah, and recently married to a stunning Irish woman, I might add. And
3
so
years.
you have a very colourful background, I have to say. First of all, you've done the most incredible marathons. I think probably some of the hardest marathons in the world, if I'm right.
Yes.
And I'm going to just talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
And then, of course, you did a TEDx talk, and then you involved me in TEDx.
Yes.
And so I had the fabulous experience of going to your lovely town. So first of all, Micheil, I want to talk to you about, before I go into your own personal stuff, talk to me about the virus and your own country, because you obviously opted to go for the herd immunity thing that the rest of us didn't do. How have the results been with your own country?
Are we talking the UK?
Well, no, I'm talking about Holland.
To be fair, I don't actually know. I don't pay that much attention to Dutch news.
Okay.
When I speak to the kids, I don't really hear anything negative or positive. So I don't really know how it's going in Holland.
Okay, and tell me this, what was your, because I know you're very active on Twitter as well, what was your opinion on the Brits and how the whole thing was handled?
Was it handled? I think it was typical British or English exceptionalism and suffering from their not invented here syndrome, wanting to do it their way.
Okay.
What is good, and Switzerland does the same, is that they allow people to go out and do one exercise a day. Whether it's a walk or a run or a ride or whatever. Because I was in Spain for the first week when Spain locked down, and you couldn't do anything but go to the shop.
Yes.
And I think keeping people allowed to go out does help for their mental stability. So that point, it wasn't a bad thing. It's in the run-up decisions they didn't take. I think weren't that clever in the UK.
Okay.
And it is difficult, I think, to say, well, I'm sitting here by myself in the park and there's nobody around me in 20 meters. What's the problem of sitting here? While when I go to a shop where I'm allowed to go, I'm far more potentially run into people or bump into people. So I can see the issues. I think that there is very little transparency in the UK on what really is happening.
Okay. And Micheil, tell me this now, your job, you had a job, obviously, you're obviously living in the UK, but you had just moved to Madrid?
Well, I moved to Madrid last August.
Yes, with the Olympic Committee, or
yeah,
what? How do you describe it?
It's the Olympic television station.
Oh. How did 20? Is that right?
A lot of talk, and then to a level not unexpected to everybody, they had to move it.
Okay, and so will you stay on board now? It'll all happen in 2021, obviously.
work out what you're gonna do next and when you're gonna do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Only it's a huge, massive project,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah,
Like it's a massive project. Mickey,
yes.
just talk to me about your marathons that you did, because I was completely fascinated. They sounded so horrific. Just give me a quick, brief breakdown on what the hell. The training was horrific to begin with, in a hot box somewhere.
Well, I did 1 year in what you call it, in a heat chamber in the university here in Kingston, which basically acclimatizes you and makes sure that you start to sweat earlier, so you cool down earlier at a lower temperature. Um, but it all came from what's the word? I read about the Marathon des Sables, I think in a KLM in-flight magazine many years ago, and figured one day I might want to do that. When I then started running in 2008, I think, I started with some triathlons and other things. And then for 2013, first time I signed up for 6 days in the desert, carrying all your own stuff. Yeah.
It looked horrific. I
Oh,
watched parts of it, and I mean, talk about, the only thing is, I suppose when you do something like that, it prepares you for anything. I mean, what you're doing now isn't hard compared to what you were doing then. I mean, it would prepare you for anything.
what it prepares you for, I think, is that you have to plan a number of things, but you also need the flexibility to be able to change your plan. Because you never know what the next day is going to do or give you or say or happen. So while you need a fairly good planning, it needs to not be that rigorous that you can't change it.
Okay, well, that's probably a good lesson for us all in business.
Yes,
You
I think
know?
so. Yeah.
Tell me this, living and married to a high-powered Irish woman, career girl, what's the ups and the downs? What surprised you about an Irish woman?
I don't know. I didn't know many, I think.
Okay.
I don't think anything surprised me. Maybe the well, what you call it? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think there were any specifically good or bad surprises.
Okay. What made you pop the question? You got this far without popping the question. So when you met Liz, what made you pop the question?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I just figured, well, I've had kids. I had a relationship. I've never been married. Now let's get married.
Okay. Well, you're
That's it.
blissfully happy. There's no doubt about it. You're perfectly.
Yes, I am.
You
I am.
are. Because, I mean, you're not the easiest person in the world.
Oh, she is. No, she
No,
is.
I said
No,
you're
that's true.
not.
Oh, me. Oh, no, I'm not either. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So sparks fly.
Yes, sometimes. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I have to say, you're living in the most beautiful place, Kingston upon Thames. It's an exquisitely beautiful town.
It's a very nice place, definitely. Yes.
It really is. And
Yes.
so what are you doing at the moment? Lockdown? You're out training?
No,
You're cycling?
no. I'm still working. We're still working.
Okay.
So I'm basically working either outside in the sun or upstairs. And Liz is working upstairs, is working from the house as well.
Okay. I'm going to have a chat with her next week, I think, because her own
Okay.
industry clearly has been decimated. The fact she's in the airline business.
Yes. But no, I'm still working. So, but I decided to come back here, not because it was specifically better or worse than Spain, but it made just more sense when the Spanish government added what's the word? Additional 15 days to the lockdown. I figured it might be
Okay.
better to be home if we're both going to be locked down.
Okay. And Micheil, just one last thing before I go, because these can't be too long, or I just can't get
Okay.
to post them. Are you going to make changes in your world going forward when we come out of this? Well, obviously Liz's business is hugely affected because it's airlines, but like personally, are you going to make changes, or do you feel that you were living life in a way that, is sustainable?
I don't know whether I'm going to make changes. What I do think, I said that to Liz as well, is this is not an industry downturn or a bank downturn. This is it doesn't almost matter what industry you work in. Everybody is in the same boat.
Yeah.
So something needs to happen. Now, I don't have the answer what it is, but in this case, you know, yes, they couldn't let the banks go bankrupt in, when was it, 2008? And whatever people say, I can understand that. In this case, they can't let every industry go bankrupt, because then nothing would work. So something needs to happen. I don't know what changes I'm going to make, or if I'm going to make any changes. I honestly don't know.
Okay. We all have to think about it, or we're looking at a bleak world ahead,
Yeah.
unless we do make changes.
Probably, yes. Well, what is interesting is that it took about 8 weeks or less to remove most of the pollution.
Yes.
So clearly there is evidence that a lot of the pollution comes from mankind. But I don't know how that's going to change. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
And I don't think anybody knows until we're out of this, whatever and whenever out of this means.
Yeah. Okay, I think we all have an awful lot of work to do, really, to get ourselves out of this. Do you?
Yep, I have work to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Well, listen to me. You have a lovely blue sky. You have a gorgeous day in Kingston upon Thames today.
We do.
Say hello to your lovely wife. I'm going to chat to her next week. Okay.
Will do.
Mind
Thanks,
yourself.
ladies.
Stay safe, Micheil.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.